Monique is back for a new season of Love During Lockup, and she said she's ready to make short kings a thing in the past. She's ready to move on to bigger and better things, like her new boo, Titus, who's currently locked up in Ohio. From the few short clips that we saw in the teaser, it really didn't tell us a lot about Titus. It said in the press release that Monique thinks that Titus is her soulmate, but Titus admitted that he doesn't know where his future stands with Monique. And I was able to come across this Sarcasm article, which led me to this article in this newspaper called the News Herald talking about Monique's boyfriend's arrest that led him to prison. So I guess back in 2012, when he was only 23 years old, he was living in Cleveland. Him and one of his 27-year-old buddies thought it would be a good idea to go rob this pizza shop. So they went inside the pizza shop with firearms. They told all the customers and employees to get on the ground. Then they went around and they robbed all the employees and customers of money and different items that they had. And then they went and robbed the registers. And they ran off with about $400 in total. And I guess the guy that he robbed the pizza shop with, he ended up getting busted, and he's currently serving a 15-year prison sentence that he was sentenced to in his part for this robbery. He had previously pleaded guilty in his case, and Monique's boyfriend, Titus, he ended up getting sentenced to 11 years for the robbery charge and each of the kidnapping charges, since they told everyone to get on the ground and they robbed them and kidnapped them. And they said the jail time was to be served concurrently. So the judge gave Titus 3 years for the firearm specification and 1 year for the repeat violent offender specification. Apparently he had some other violent charges in the past, and we'll look more into his criminal history in another video. So the judge really laid it on him. He was to serve 4 years on the specifications, and then he was to serve that consecutively. And then after he was done with that 4-year sentence, he would have to serve his 11-year sentence for the kidnapping and robbery charges. So I guess Titus's defense attorney said a lot of the reason why Titus decided to finally start taking responsibility is because of his son that he learned about right before he went to prison. So he ended up meeting his 3-month-old son for the very first time when he did get sentenced to prison. And his defense attorney said that Titus's son was a big part of why he was accepting responsibility for his actions. I think it gives him motivation to take this like a man, to accept responsibility, and to respect the sentence of the court. I think it's going to do a lot for him when he's in prison, when he's trying to better himself and take advantage of programs, knowing there's some light at the end of the tunnel. Titus told the courts that while he's in prison, he intends to seek out as much help as he can get. He's going to get in all the self-help programs and classes to better himself. And the prosecuting attorney told the court that the state ended up seeking the 15-year sentence because the victim suffered economic and psychological harm during the robbery. I don't blame them. I know people who worked at a restaurant that got robbed, and they still have PTSD to this day. The court also noted that they are concerned that Titus may not be able to be a product of recidivism, which that's what a lot of Love After Lockup focuses on, the inmates getting out and adapting and getting jobs and being products of their environment. They feel like that Titus would not be able to be a functioning member of society, at least when they sentenced him, because they said whenever he caught this aggravated robbery charge in February 2012, I guess he was already out on bond for a prior aggravated robbery offense. So they're like, okay, this dude obviously does not learn. He needs to not be out on bond. That's the one concern. It sounds like when it comes to Titus, it sounds like this is what he's known his whole adult life before going to prison. So it's definitely probably going to be a challenge for him to adapt once he does finally get out. And so he was already out on bond for a prior aggravated robbery charge. And then I guess he ended up leaving the state and he had to be extradited back to Ohio from Las Vegas. And he wasn't even supposed to be leaving the state. And then a third man who is 20 years old, he was also charged in connection with the robbery. I guess he ended up driving the getaway car and he led police on a high-speed chase. And I guess he denied being the driver and the case is still pending. That was back in this article from back in 2012. I didn't do any digging to see if they shared any updates on it. I'm sure there are updates since this was years ago. But yeah, so Titus got sentenced to 15 years in prison. So the big question now is, when is Titus going to get out? Well, Titus is not scheduled to get out of prison until 2027. He was booked into jail in January 2013, and he is scheduled to be released in March of 2027. So about, in a few more months, about a year more left to go. I mean, I could definitely see Monique and Titus coming on another season of Love After Lockup once he does finally get out. So, I mean, if he gets out in March, then we'll probably see it like by the end of the year of 2026 if they do end up bringing them back for another season. I apologize. I meant at the end of the year of 2027 or probably at the beginning of 2028 is probably the time we finally see the season edited and airing if they did come back. But yeah, so he still has about a year left to go, and I recommend you check out this article that Sarcasm came out with because they actually got a hold of this letter that Titus had wrote to the courts in an attempt to get released early, and he kept it real. He said, look, I'm not going to lie to you guys. And I'm paraphrasing, but you can check out the, whole letter if you want at Sarcasm, like I said. But he said, I'm going to keep it real with you guys. I've been doing all these classes and all this stuff, and none of that has changed me at all. But I will admit that I decided to get a close relationship with God, and nothing has been able to change me like the way God has, and I'm a whole different man, and now I feel like I can get out and be a functioning member of society and do everything I need to do now that I have God by my side. And the judge ended up denying it. They didn't see that it was enough evidence to prove that he was worthy of being released early. But that's pretty much all the information I have now on Titus. I'm definitely going to do some more digging after this video, so stay tuned for that. But let me know what you guys think about everything in the comments below, and thank you guys so much for watching.